be a massive expansion in the numbers of people being deported as protesters fly their flag from Lady Liberty with a new executive order on immigration due any day now. Meanwhile, congressional Republicans across the country facing heated town hall crowds in their home districts. Plus, the fall of an equal opportunity offender. Milo Yiannopoulos resigns as an editor at Breitbart News. And you know you've gone too far when you're too much for Breitbart. But why was a man who spouted so much hate ever a darling of conservatives in the first place? That's a good question, and we'll answer that for you this evening. Let's get right to CNN senior White House correspondent, Mr. Jeff Selny, with the breaking news of the evening, the newest thing that we have. So, Jeff, let's talk about the president now, signaling an expansion of deportations of undocumented immigrants in this country. What exactly is the White House saying?
He is indeed, Don. They really sent two memorandums to the Department of Homeland Security today, basically saying they're going to enforce existing U.S. law. Virtually anyone who is in the country as an undocumented immigrant could be subjected to being arrested. Now, this is different from the Obama administration. That was generally reserved for criminals, someone who is a violent criminal here. They simply did not have the bandwidth to go after everyone. But White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer today made clear that everyone who's undocumented could now be at risk.
Everybody who is here illegally is subject to removal at any time. That is consistent with every country, not just ours. If you're in this country in an illegal manner, that obviously there's a provision that could ensure that you be removed. But the priority that the president has laid forward and the priority that ICE is putting forward through DHS's guidance is to make sure that the people who have committed a crime or pose a threat to our public safety are the priority of their efforts.
And to make clear, the White House is saying indeed that criminals, people who have records, other things, are the top on that priority list here to be deported. But simply, making these suggestions that all laws will be enforced is causing alarm throughout immigrant communities tonight, Don. And this is just simply the first of a few steps. We're still waiting this week for a new executive order here for the travel ban that we've been talking about for weeks here. That could come tomorrow or as the week goes on.
Hey, Jeff, tell us about what about the dreamers, the young immigrants who were brought to this country as children?
Well, Don, that was one of the executive orders that President Obama signed into law, basically saying that any young person who comes to this country, illegally or not, could stay. And this was, they are called the Dreamers, the DACA Act, if you will. And President Trump, this administration, is not touching that, for now at least. They say they are prioritizing criminals and others. They are not, even looking at the Dreamers. But it's clear that this is for now. It's unclear what will be happening in the the months and years to come here. But for now, the Dreamers are off the table, and this is something that immigration hardliners will actually be raising questions against this administration on, because they believe that they are breaking the law too, regardless of their age, Don.
Tonight, Jeff, thank you very much. I want to bring in now Bill Kristol, the editor of the Weekly Standard, Gloria Borger, CNN chief political analyst, Van Jones, CNN political commentator, and Jan Brewer, the former governor of Arizona. Gang's all here. Thank you so much for joining us. Gloria, I'm going to start with you. We're seeing a fundamental shift in U.S. immigration policy, expanding the number of individuals who can be deported or detained. As controversial as this may be, the bottom line is we're seeing President Trump fulfill a key campaign promise.
Yeah, he is. This is what he said he would do, aside from Dreamers, which he has said, I'm going to keep President Obama's policy on Dreamers, as Jeff was pointing out. But this is what he promised in the campaign. However, there are lots of questions tonight. The president's executive order calls for the hiring of 10,000 new enforcement agents. That could cost anywhere, I've just looked at estimates, between $1 and $4 billion. Add that to the cost of the wall, which is over $20 billion. And you have to wonder how this is going to be paid for and how long it's going to take for all of these changes to take effect. The administration says this isn't changes, this is just the kind of strong enforcement that the nation should have had all along. But there are lots of immigration experts who say, you know what, by adding this huge police force here, you're giving people broad authority to detain, arrest, and deport that they never had before.
How different is it, though, Gloria, before I get to the other folks, than the previous administration's deportation policy? Because, you know, they call President Obama the deporter-in-chief.
Right, because he deported 2 million people. But what President Obama did was he said that illegal immigrants convicted of serious crimes should be the priority here for deportation. Now, Customs and Border Control can remove anyone convicted of a crime, and the question is, what's a crime?
Right.
Is a crime a DUI? Is a crime tax evasion? You know, it seems that everything is going to be lumped together.
And they don't know yet. It's not exactly spelled out. So we have to see as it is implemented who gets deported and what is constituted as a crime, or at least a serious enough crime to be deported. Van Jones, the White House says that the goal is not mass deportation, but these guidelines is going to make it easier to deport people. What's your biggest concern here?
Well, I think if you just take a step back, it's very easy to get way down in the weeds, well, this thing and that thing. It sends a signal that America is a less friendly and a less welcoming place. And you can't actually calculate what that means to the country. In other words, you got a lot of people who are here right now who are going to be afraid. They're going to be less willing to cooperate with law enforcement. If they see a crime, they might be afraid to call the cops. They may be afraid to do any number of things. But also there are people who, when they look at the ban on those 7 Muslim countries, when they look at this, they might think to themselves, you know what, I used to want to come to the United States. I used to want to be a part of that country. I don't think they want me, so I'm going to keep my genius to myself. I'm going to try another way. And you could literally be suffering from, you know, we had a brain drain to our favor. So many great people wanted to come here. I'm afraid that some great people are going to
But a lot of
leave
Americans,
here
Van,
and
are
not
okay
come.
with that.
Well, I think that sometimes we think that Americans are great because so many Americans who are born here are great. Remember your high school class. We got a lot of Americans that are kind of mediocre, but we attract a disproportionate number of amazing people to the country, and that's really what gives us that edge. If we throw that away, you just don't know what the consequences are long term.
Yeah. Governor Brewer, I want you to weigh in now, but I know that you're pleased with what you're hearing from the president. We've heard you speak so much about illegal immigration in your state, but specifically on the Dreamers, Governor, the White House says that they're safe for now. How do you feel about that?
Well, you know, first of all, Don, I would like to say that what he proposed today is simply enforcing existing laws. We that live in America, I think we all want to believe that we all are living under the laws, and if we don't like the laws, then change the laws. But dealing with illegal immigration is a very difficult situation because it has a lot of issues connected to it. But first and foremost, he wants to deport convicted illegal immigrants, people that have been charged and convicted. That is the #1 priority, and he is not doing anything different than what he promised the people of America. And he won that election. And the people of America support him in that direction.
Yeah, we agree with you, and that's Gloria. My first question to Gloria, but specifically about the Dreamers. He said the Dreamers are okay. How do you feel about that, Governor?
Well, personally, you know, I don't believe it's a top priority. I know that they are here and that they probably have lived here for a long time and that they came for reasons that their parents probably brought them so they'd have a better life. But the bottom line is that they too are illegal. I don't think that they're going to go door to door and have major raids on the Dreamers. The fact of the matter is that if they wanted to do that, they would have already have done it. And
You
they're
think they
not
should be able
to?
You think they should do it?
Priorities. I think the law says that they can do it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I want to bring Bill
But
Chris.
I think that there's a human instinct that, you know, we understand there's an issue there. But first and foremost, Don, and I think everybody will agree, we have a lot of issues to deal with. We first and foremost, we've got to get our border secured.
Yeah.
But to sit here and the sky is falling because we're going to enforce the law, come on. I mean, it is the law. It is...
I don't think anyone has said that on this panel. Has anyone said the sky is falling? Well, of course. I mean, it's a new immigration. It's a new immigration policy. We should be debating it. But no one is saying the sky is falling. That's what you do when there's something.
It's not a new immigration. It is not a new immigration policy. He's enforcing the existing laws, and they are illegal immigrants.
That's what.
Well, listen,
there's nothing. I don't understand why you're saying it's. We should be debating this. We're Americans. That's what we do. This is what we do in the media. That's why we have the free media. That's why you're here. We want to get your side. But I haven't heard. Hold on, Governor. I'm going to let you get. But I haven't heard anyone here say the sky is falling. We're simply talking about this new plan that the White House proposed today, and we're trying to make heads or tails of it. That's it. And no one is saying the sky is falling.
That he's going to enforce the existing laws. Everybody seems to think, I mean, these federal laws.
You made that point. Gloria made that point as well.
Well, I mean, and you don't want to think that it's illegal. I mean, if you want the law changed, then change the law.
Okay.
But in the meantime, we have illegal immigration coming across our borders.
Okay. I want to get Bill Kristol, and Bill's been sitting here patiently, Governor. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, this doesn't deal with anyone coming across the borders. It maybe deters some people from coming because they think they'll be deported more quickly. So in that respect, insofar as so much of Trump's campaign rhetoric was about the wall, so far, no wall. Right. Secondly, I would say the main Republican objection to what President Obama did was partly his lax enforcement of the laws, and now Trump is a stricter enforcement of the laws. That's a policy debate that's reasonable.
That he is proposing, but
that he's ordering DHS to go ahead with. We'll see if it happens.
I want to get your point.
Let me just add one other thing just before on that, though. But the Dreamers, that was the complaint. I mean, the Republican complaint was that President Obama did something that the legislation did not authorize him to do with that executive order. Remember, President Obama had earlier said, I would need legislation to do that. Then in 2014, he goes ahead and does it. Republicans scream and yell. Trump makes it a centerpiece of his campaign speeches. He's going to reverse those executive orders. He's not doing that. I think that's interesting. And so the question for me is, this is what's so hard to tell about Trump. Ultimately, is he going to pursue fairly moderate policies? Yeah. Look at Governor Brewer. She's defending them. He's just enforcing the law. He's not even changing anything.
Right.
With sort of a certain amount of bravado and a certain amount of appealing to his base. I'm getting tough. But guess what? The Dreamers stay. Yeah. Guess what? I'm just enforcing the law a little more. Or is he, as Vance suggested, fundamentally changing our attitude towards immigrants, legal and illegal?
Help me understand
in which case, I think it is a more fundamental
change.
Because
we're saying that he's just enforcing the law, and that's what Governor Brewer is saying. We're just enforcing the law. The former president was called the deporter-in-chief because he deported so many different people. But I've heard people on this network and others saying, well, the administration failed us before. Can you really say those two things at the same time if you...
I think President Obama, most of that deportation was before he modified his instructions to and how to enforce the law to DHS with prosecutorial discretion and all that. But look, I do think it's a very interesting question. A lot will depend on how it's implemented, and this is true of a fair number of Trump's policies. Foreign policy, domestic policy, is that a lot of talk and bravado and keep the base happy, and then at the end of the day, you have a fairly normal, somewhat more conservative administration than President Obama's, obviously, or is it a fundamental change in American policy with all kinds of implications? I personally would be relieved if it were the first. I'm worried that it's the second, and I think Van's point's important, and I've been fairly hawkish on immigration, but you do not want to send a signal to the world that we are scared of people coming in, that we think the situation in the U.S. right now is unmanageable, the borders are being overrun, that the cities are teeming with people who are here illegally, and we've got to panic. I do think that's not true, and I think not a healthy thing for the president to convey to the degree he's conveying that.
This is a very good conversation. I wanted to talk about the president and African Americans visiting anti-Semitism and all that, visiting the African American Museum of History in Washington today. But I want to continue on with this just a little bit and then talk about that, and we'll do it after the break. The cost of this, is it worth it? And then we'll talk about the other thing when we come right back. We'll be back.